My belief is that if you actually follow those tips, then not only will you keep your blood sugar under control in a post-collapse situation where you can't get your medicine, but you will actually put your type 2 diabetes into remission where you won't even need those store-bought medicines anymore. So I want you just to imagine this. Our grid has went down, and because the grid is down, you just can't run down to the pharmacy to pick up your diabetes medicine when you run out. So in today's video, you are going to learn how you can control your type 2 diabetes in a grid down situation without the use of store-bought medications. But first, for new viewers, welcome to my channel, also my little bug out location. This is the second weekend in a row that I'm having to film inside my little cabin because it's too cold and windy to film outside. But this channel is all about prepping and self-defense. So if you like information that the mainstream media typically hides, be sure to subscribe to this channel and hit that like button. So a conundrum that many preppers face is that a lot of preppers are in their 50s, 40s, and 50s and older, plus they are either pre-type 2 diabetic or they have type 2 diabetes. Plus, our other conundrum is a lot of our long-term storage foods such as rice and potato flakes and wheat and oats and stuff like that. Those are high carbohydrate food, and then I think we all know that high carbohydrate food is what turns to sugar inside of our bloodstream, inside of our body. So a real issue that a lot of preppers is going to have is that when the grid goes down and they have to start eating their long-term storage foods, it's going to play absolute havoc on their blood sugar level. And that's just going to be a real problem for a lot of people, because when your blood sugar levels is through the roof, and because it's a grid down situation, you just can't run down to the pharmacy in a grid down situation to get your diabetes medicine. So here is what I plan to do, even though I don't have type 2 diabetes, but I am always really close to becoming pre-type 2 diabetic. And the way I control my diabetes is by eating a low carbohydrate diet. But anyways, this video is going to share tips that I plan to do should I have to start eating those high carbohydrate foods such as rice and white potatoes and wheat and oats and things like that. So the very first thing that I would do in a grid down situation to keep myself from becoming a type 2 diabetic, or if I was already a type 2 diabetic, to keep my blood sugar numbers in control, is I would eat half of the amount of the long-term storage food that is high in carbohydrates, again, such as rice or wheat or oats and stuff like that. Now, nothing that I'm giving in this video is medical advice. Again, this is what I would do, but again, I would eat half the amount of the high carbohydrate food. But the big but here is because you are only eating half of the amount of the rice or whatever, you got to do something to make up the rest of the meal so that you're not hungry. So luckily for me, at this bug out location, and I'm sure even at your house too, I have a lot of wild edibles that grow around here. I have a lot of lamb's quarters that grows wild here. I have a lot of dandelions that grow wild here, and I can treat that like any green leafy vegetable or like spinach, and I can cook that and I can add that to the rice or whatever else that I'm eating to help bulk up that meal. Plus, those wild edibles are going to add a lot. They're going to add a ton of nutrients to that food that I'm already eating. And then I might even eat that green leafy vegetable first before I eat the rice or whatever else that's higher in carbohydrates. And that's because one of the things that I've learned is that if you get that fiber and stuff into your system first, that will actually help to slow down your body's absorption of the carbohydrates from that rice or that wheat or oats or whatever else it is that you're eating in that meal. So for me, I would cut the amount of high carbohydrate food in half. Therefore, I'm only getting half the amount of starchy, high carbohydrate food in my stomach, so I won't get as much of a blood sugar rise. And then the other thing I would do is I would add a lot of wild edibles to it so that it would bulk up the rest of the meal and then with the other half of the high carbohydrate food that I am eating, it will slow the absorption of that down, so I will have more of a steady rise in the blood sugar instead of a big massive spike. And then of course, if we were actually living out here in a grid down situation, I would actually be having a garden also where I would be growing a lot of other vegetables to add to the half amount of the high carbohydrate food that I'm eating. But those vegetables that I would grow would all be above ground vegetables and not things like sweet potatoes or white potatoes and stuff like that that will raise your blood sugar. And really quick, Rogue Preparedness has a goal to reach 100,000 subscribers on her prepping channel. So please do me a favor, and I will put a link to her channel down below. Go over to her channel and subscribe to her. She's helped me out in the past, so let's have each other's back. So again, go below to that link, go over to her channel, give her a subscribe. I really enjoy the videos that she does, and I think you will get a lot of information out of her. Now again, just to reiterate, nothing that I'm giving in this video is health or medical advice, but the next thing that I would do to control my blood sugars in a grid down situation is I would eat my meals more slowly. One of the things I have found is that if I eat a high carbohydrate food and I sit down and I eat it in 10 or 15 minutes, then I will have a bigger blood sugar rise. But if I eat it slower and spread that meal out, maybe like over the course of an hour or something like that, maybe I take 4 or 5 bites, set the spoon down for 10 or 15 minutes, take 4 or 5 more bites, and keep doing that. So I spread my meal out over an hour. But believe it or not, you will have less of a blood sugar spike. It gives your body time to digest and start using that blood sugar before you introduce a little bit more at a time, but you will have a much more stable blood sugar level by spreading your meal out over a longer period of time. And like I mentioned earlier, again, to help stabilize the blood sugars and to prevent any blood sugar spikes or my blood sugar from getting too high, again, I would probably eat my vegetables before I eat the rice or the potato flakes or whatever else that my long-term storage food is. But I would eat the vegetables first because, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, putting that fiber into your stomach first many times will help slow the absorption of those carbohydrates into your bloodstream. So again, just another thing to have a more steady blood sugar levels, again, rather than the big spike. And really quick, if you are watching this video on YouTube, you should come over to Rumble to watch it because Rumble does not censor us like YouTube does. So if you want to support the freedom of speech, all you have to do is search ethical preparedness in the search bar. And then the next thing that I would do to help control my blood sugar levels in a grid down situation where I can't go to the pharmacy for diabetes medicine is I would make my own medicine from the weeds that grow around me here. And one of the weeds that I would use would be dandelion root, the common dandelion, because dandelion root contains inulin, and inulin helps to make your body less insulin resistant. And shameless plug here, I wrote a book, I believe it's over 400 pages, that gives a whole bunch of different simple recipes and instructions on how you can make a bunch of different medicines for common things like headaches, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, diarrhea, infected skin cuts, just a ton of things that we will suffer from in a post-collapse situation. And I believe the book is only 25 bucks, and I will put a link to it down below if you want to check it out. And then another quote-unquote weed that grows wild down here that I would use to help control type 2 diabetes in a post-collapse situation would be the weed called yellow root. And yellow root gets its name because obviously its roots are yellow. And that yellow coloring in its root is berberine. And if you know anything about berberine, and from what I've heard and what studies have evidently shown, is that the regular use of berberine does almost just as good as metformin for helping to control your type 2 diabetes. And again, if you would like directions on how you can use dandelion root or yellow root to make your own type 2 diabetes medicine when you can't have access to professional medical help. Again, a link to the book that I wrote, the physical book that I wrote, will be down below, and I believe it's only 25 bucks at this time. And then another thing that I would do to help control my blood sugar levels in a post-collapse situation is, at minimum, I would take a 15 to 20 minute brisk walk after each meal. Folks, I have to tell you, this part really surprised me of how well it works. I wear one of those continuous glucose monitors so that I can maintain normal blood sugar levels so that I don't end up type 2 diabetic. But one of the things I have found is that if my blood sugar is raising up too high, higher than I like, higher than 140, taking a 15 to 20 minute brisk walk, not a slow walk, but a brisk walk, really drops that blood sugar level back down into the safe zone. Again, it really surprised me how well that works. But then if you can't go for a walk, maybe it's too dangerous outside or too cold outside or something like that, there's also been recent studies that show that doing 10 body weight squats, doing 10 of those every 45 minutes throughout an 8-hour period of your day, it looks like that's just as effective as doing a brisk walk. So that's just another tip there for you. But my understanding, the way that taking that brisk walk or that doing those body weight, but those squats, the reason why those do so well at lowering your blood sugar back into the good zone is because I guess the major muscles, your leg muscles, are really glucose hungry when you're using them. So when you're using those major muscles like that, your muscles are just really eating up the blood sugar that's in your blood. So again, it just brings you back down into the normal zone. And then the next thing that I may do in a grid down situation to control my blood sugar levels, and this is something that so many people swear by, and that is fasting. And I have to be completely transparent here, and that is, I really struggle with fasting. Every time I've tried it in the past, and that's even with drinking like the bulletproof coffee or whatever they call that, but every time I've tried it in the past, by the time that I am able to eat lunch because I've skipped breakfast or what have you, but by the time I am able to eat, I am so tired, I am so hungry, I'm having such a hard time focusing that when I am able to eat my lunch, then I have a tendency to overdo it. And then I've tried where I just eat breakfast and lunch and not dinner. But one of my issues there is then if my last meal is too early in the day, then I am very hungry when it's time to go to bed, and then I can't fall asleep until I at least get something into my stomach. So that's just a long way of saying tons of people swear by it. I really have difficulty doing it, but hey, you know what? If it's a grid down situation and food is scarce, you might not have a choice. So my belief is, again, this is not medical advice, but my belief is that if you are either pre-type 2 diabetic or you are type 2 diabetic and you find yourself in a post-collapse situation where you cannot go to the pharmacy or get professional medical help, my personal belief is that you can control your type 2 diabetes by following these tips. Cutting your carbs in half, eating only half the amount of carbs. Making the rest of your meal with vegetables or wild greens. Stretching your meal out instead of eating it all at once, giving your stomach more time to digest that food a little bit at a time. And then making your own homemade medicines to help with the diabetes. And then taking a brisk walk or getting some kind of exercise after each meal. And my belief is, again, this is not medical advice, but my belief is that if you actually follow those tips, then not only will you keep your blood sugar under control in a post-collapse situation where you can't get your medicine, but not only will you keep your blood sugar under control, but you will actually put your type 2 diabetes into remission where you won't even need those store-bought medicines anymore Again, just as long as you don't start eating big bowls of rice and white potatoes and stuff like that again. So what are some other tips maybe that I missed that you can add in that would help somebody to control their type 2 diabetes in a grid down situation? Comment down below with your tips so that we all learn from each other. And to see a whole playlist where I show how to make a whole bunch of different medicines using the weeds that grow around you, then click on the video that should be appearing on the screen just about now to learn what most other preppers don't know. Anyways, folks, this is enough internet for me today. I do need to get back to work, but folks, if you made it this far, hey, thank you very much for watching, and I pray that you have a good night.